This video is supposed to be another interview style like we did with Drewski several months ago. But this time with someone that I've wanted to interview for quite a long time, mainly because I'm salty at the fact that he had less subscribers at the start of 2020 than I did, but now has overtaken me and has become his own little juggernaut over here in this corner of YouTube. Of course, I'm not that salty. Okay, I'm a bit salty. I'm not that salty. I'm okay. I'm fine. Mom, I'm fine.
I'm gonna send you my anti-tilt video.
Perfect. No, but honestly, like, seeing your success in the last year has been pretty extraordinary, Patty. Like, I wanted to talk to you about this. Like, the title of this video is The Rise of a New Legend. And it might be a little premature to label you as a legend of the Destiny community, but the kind of videos you make, the advice you give, the care and the thought that goes into every single one of these videos, and you upload them so regularly as well. Like, it's a little hard not to fall in love with you and what you do and everything that's going on. So,
thank you. Appreciate that.
Tell me a little bit about just this meteoric rise that you've had. You started 2020 with less than 10,000, I think. And now you're over 60.
Like 1 to 2,000, I think, actually.
You had 1 to 2,000?
Yeah, I think it was like something like that. I want to say it's maybe like 1.5 to 2. Well, maybe 2,000, because I think that the first like several months of my channel, were just the 0 to 1K, where you're trying to get the monetization and all that kind of stuff, and it felt like that took forever because right. It's probably, I think it was like around maybe 8 months to go from 0 to 1K, and then the next, that's how it is for everyone. Like, I know Mr. Beast just hit 50 million, and like I saw this cool thing with he went from like 40 to 50 million in like 100 something days. It's like unbelievable, but it's just I think that's just how it is with any of these platforms. The first 1,000 or whatever is by far the hardest, and then the second 1,000's much easier, and then you'll have like 1,000 in a day at some point if you keep doing it. So it's it's just a matter of progression. I think that's how most of these work.
Yeah, of course. And like for me, one of my big content heroes is Casey Neistat, and he always says the first million was the hardest, and before that the first 100,000 was the hardest, and before that the first 10,000 was the hardest, and before that the first 1,000 was the hardest, and then he got his second million in less than half the time.
Yep,
so at some point it becomes about momentum more than anything else. Are you surprised at your success so far?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say pleasantly surprised. I don't want to say surprised is the right word, because I feel like I've worked really hard to try to like make the best channel and content that I can, and I've studied like a lot of people that I think are great at it and tried to understand what they do and apply that, and not just in Destiny creators, but like just all over the platform and different stuff. So I don't feel like surprise is the right word, but it's more like, I guess I don't know, I'm very grateful and happy that that people have given my channel a chance and decided to watch my content, and it seems like a lot of people have enjoyed it, so I'm very grateful for that.
Of course. So for the people who are still 4.5 minutes into this YouTube video and they don't know who you are, why don't you give me a little summary of who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is Pattycakes. Patrick is my real IRL name. I have a content channel mostly on YouTube these days. I do stream occasionally as well, but I cover all kinds of different FPS advice, mostly geared towards Destiny right now, but I try to make a lot of my videos kind of a little bit broader, where they apply a lot of general FPS concepts to your learning, so that you could take what you learn from my channel and go play, Valorant or Battlefield or Call of Duty or whatever. And, a lot of the lessons that I try to teach would be hopefully helpful for those other games as well. But we certainly do have quite a bit of Destiny specific content trying to help you understand, what guns are the meta right now and how to most effectively use them. And then I've recently been doing this interview series, which has been really fun, with a lot of very talented PvP players, including yourself, which is a new one coming out soon.
Hint.
And so it's been really fun to kind of do that as more of a interview series lately, kind of like a podcast, but on YouTube.
Sure, yeah. Do you see yourself more as a Destiny YouTuber or a gaming YouTuber? Because you do blur that line quite frequently.
That's somewhat intentional too, because I love Destiny to death. I've been playing it since, the first week of D1, and I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. But I also realize that Destiny has a lifespan at some point, and I really enjoy this job right now. So I would like to
Sure.
hopefully be able to transition to other games at some point whenever Destiny has lived out its lifespan. And so I do try to intentionally do that. And also I find it, I don't know, I've been playing FPS games now for over 20 years. I'm a definitely boomer category. And so and so I love taking the knowledge that I've learned from, I used to play Counter-Strike at a pretty competitive level, playing in like tournaments and leagues and stuff back when I was a kid. And I've followed like the pro teams for a
Mm,
lot of different games like that over the years, and studied demos and just really tried to understand strategy at a deep level.
right.
And so I like taking those concepts that I've distilled and trying to teach them to people who haven't been exposed to that kind of stuff yet.
Yeah, it's that's probably one of the best ways you can date yourself is saying I used to play Counter Strike competitively.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask though, you take this approach, but you decided to go deliver your message and build this channel through Destiny specifically. And for better or worse, you said you had less than 1 to 2K at the beginning of 2020, which is still very much like your infancy. You're starting out, you're starting to like put your put your feet in the water, so to speak. Why try for Destiny when this is an aging franchise? It's already so many established content creators. What did you think you could do differently that you could bring to the table? And how did you go about doing that and execute it to the point where now you're firmly an established voice of the community?
It kind of started, it never started with the intention of like becoming sort of a content creator. I literally just have been playing Destiny for fun for years. Like I said, I started in the first week of D1, and so I've just loved this game ever since it came out. I've taken breaks, but I've for the most part been playing it nonstop. And I've always loved the PvP part of it specifically. And back in, I don't know, probably 2 to 3 years ago now, I was in a clan where I used to play a lot of PvP with them, and I was one of the better players in the clan. And so people always wanted to watch my perspective when we played PvP. So I started streaming to Twitch, and that was really fun. I never like thought of myself as like becoming a Twitch streamer. I know a lot of people kind of had like aspirations to become a content creator,
Right.
and I actually never really had that. It was sort of like on accident that it sort of all happened.
Oh no,
Um,
you just made a lot of kids mold with that statement.
well, it's like, I always like followed content creators, and I always like, I contemplated trying it at some point, but really it started out because I had all these friends who were just sort of begging me to stream because they just wanted to watch me play PvP. And then,
Yeah.
I kind of got some success with that. I had a lot of friends who were watching, and it was pretty cool to do. But then I kept getting the same questions like all the time. Like people would ask me about, sniping tips and stuff like that. And so I decided to make a YouTube channel literally just to satisfy these questions, because I felt like I was doing a really terrible job of answering it on stream, because like I didn't want to give a whole 15-minute spiel every time someone asked like about how to snipe better, and
Right.
I just wasn't the right platform to give that kind of advice in a thorough manner. And so I turned to YouTube and started, making stuff like that literally just because people would ask me these questions. I wanted to do a better job. I also came across some people like, I know we're both fans of Harris Heller and his Alpha
Yes.
Gaming, and I study a lot of like YouTubers behind the scenes who teach like, how to become a better content creator.
Mm,
And so, one of the best ways to grow a stream is through a different platform like YouTube
yeah.
or whatever you want to
Yeah.
grow on. And so, that there sort of served two purposes. It was like, number one, it would help grow my stream, but also it would just, it was a good way to answer those types of questions I was getting over and over and over again.
Well, this is a good segue actually to something to the main point of this video, which is what like your content journey specifically is like how you started it, how you came about it, how you wanted to continue growing it. And it's like I'm just getting hints of this, and I know we touched on this briefly before the recording, is that your approach to content is very different than what a lot of people do when they first start out. It feels very hobbyist. It feels like people are finding their feet. They're sort of just trying the waters. Whereas for you, I've been following your channel since that initial trials card back in March or whenever it was. Maybe
Mhm.
was it March or April?
Something like that, yeah. It
Something
was
like that.
certainly, well, last spring at some point.
So that was one of like I had heard about you a few weeks before that, and I was looking at your content, and I was like, even though it's not perfect, this is pretty close to end game like high level stuff. Like this is what I would expect from a 500,000, 600,000 subscriber YouTube channel. But you were only at 1,000. I just thought, okay, this person is from media. This person has media background. Um, is that true?
Yeah, it's
Was I
funny that you mentioned that because that was actually one of the comments I would get all the time when I first started out. Is people would come and say, "Oh my gosh, I thought that you had 500,000 subscribers, not like 500 subscribers."
yeah.
I was like, "Oh my, well, that's nice. Thank you, I appreciate it." Uh, yeah, so you're sort of right. I do come from a bit of a media background. Actually, my degree was in mechanical engineering, so that's why I
Oh
have
yes,
this
a
sort
very
of like
famous media background.
yeah. But like back, in college I studied engineering. And so I think I approach things in a very analytical way most of the time.
Hmm.
But actually shortly after I kind of got into the real world and had worked in a few different engineering industries, I started my own digital marketing
Sorry to
company.
interrupt. You said something called real world. Could you elaborate?
Basically the post college world.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Sounds
you know, I-
rough.
yeah, it's terrible. No, it's
Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, it's all good. So, anyway, I had been working in the engineering world for a while, and it was cool. But I wanted to just try something different, and I read all these books on starting your own business and getting into marketing and stuff, and so I kind of took my engineering background and made a digital marketing company where we really focused on like automation stuff. Like, there's all these different automated marketing platforms and stuff like that, and
Hmm.
so it required a lot of like technical ability, but also pairing that with like business sense and stuff like that. So I basically spent all of my time just becoming super um, I don't know, obsessed with understanding business and marketing, and then I ended up making this agency where we worked with all these content creators. But I would be the one behind the scenes who was like helping them, with the websites and helping them kind of turn it
Interesting.
into like a real business when they were just sort of, the person
Right.
creating the content. So it's been kind of interesting now, like, 10 years later or whatever, that I'm the person creating the content and I'm kind of trying to figure out, how to build like a business around it.
Now you have
Uh,
this cheat code of this huge wealth of knowledge that functions as a cheat code because now you can see the end almost before you've even
yeah,
begun
it
because
is.
of
You're
that.
totally right about that. It's a very interesting perspective to have, I think, because I've worked with all these different people who have just gigantic media brands and sort of seen like the back end of what a lot of that looks like. And so I think I had a little bit of like that perspective of what it looks like to have a successful channel, and that sort of has helped me a lot, I think, along the way to hopefully do a good job of creating my own.
Yeah, no, I mean it's certainly worked out so far. Now, talk me about the specific approach though. Are you going in this one video at a time, or is there a grand master plan? Are you working towards a specific goal with the intention of producing a very specific kind of content,
Mhm.
or are you just kind of responding to trends? You're responding to the topics of the day, and you're making educated decisions based on data and facts and community sentiment, and doing the best you can for that.
That's something that's actually evolved over time. So when I first started out, I would just literally make one video at a time where I had, my process was like, well, at first I wasn't even scripting anything. I would just kind of talk. And then I found out that I'm not very good at just talking on the fly. It was much better to like
You're doing
script
a
it.
decent job right now.
Well, I appreciate it. I think I've improved a bit at it since I started. But yeah, basically I spent all this time, editing these awful recordings where I just had to like, it was just such a waste of time. And so
Hmm.
I ended up just starting to loosely script in the outline, and then kind of like over time I just fully scripted because I got better at just reading the script. Like, because I write in the way that I would talk. It's just that
Sure.
my thoughts are more formulated instead of like having to, think on the fly. And I've actually kind of gone the other way recently where I've sort of opened back up to doing more just kind of free thinking. But
Hmm.
I think it helped me a lot to structure my content early on, at least, to have a very like well thought out point that I wanted to make instead of just kind of flailing at the hip and kind of talking about whatever came to mind. And so I think that helped my content seem a little bit more professional, maybe from the get go. But then after, I don't know, that's like one part of it. But then as I have grown with it, I've started to like kind of grow my team, who's helping me with this kind of stuff more. It used to just be solely me doing literally everything, and now I've been working with some different people who have been helping me recently with like a little bit of the writing and stuff for different scripts and paying attention to some bigger channels. Like I've been a fan of like Linus Tech Tips for a long time,
Yeah.
and just trying to like take inspiration from how he runs his stuff, where he has like I think he has like a
Is it
20 or 30-person team now,
Yeah, he
something
has a
like
he has a
that.
whole writers room, like I think
Yeah,
10 or
and
11 writers or something like that.
that's like really inspiring to me because that's I work so many hours a week on this stuff, and I've kind of come to my own physical limitations of how much energy I have in a day to work
Sure.
on this kind of stuff. And I've realized that, the only way to really take it further is just to leverage my time by, having people help me do the things that I'm not either I don't want to do, or I just can't I don't have the ability to do it as as much as needs to happen to get content out there on a consistent schedule.
Right.
So I've been in that process, been transitioning more to doing multiple videos at the same time, just as a natural consequence of that, where I'll have like maybe one person helping me with like a script, and then another one like the script's done, but I working on like figuring out like how to start filming the content for it, or like each one's sort of in its own timeline that needs to kind of be created. So it's kind of weird because I never was that way. I always would just do one video at a time from start to finish,
Mm.
and now I'm like, I mean, literally right now I have probably 5 to 10 videos that are in some different stage of creation.
Oh god, that sounds like a nightmare to me. I can't work that way at all. Just myself and Eddie, who I brought on to be my manager.
Mhm.
We've talked about that creative process, like the necessity of having multiple things going. But a couple of things affect me when I do that. Is that I'll get into the groove and creating or writing or whatever stage I'm at. Usually it's either writing or editing, because if the writing's done, then I immediately do the voiceover because it's fresh in my head.
Mhm.
If it's editing, then it's editing. Usually it stops because something happened in real life or I'm missing a piece of footage. Then I then have to spend 3,000 hours trying to get because I keep getting shatter dived in Crucible. um,
Yeah.
but because of that, because of the very linear way my brain progresses, I'm not very good at switching over. But the other concern I have with the whole thing when I did that for a period of time was that the sheer quality of the videos dropped as well, because your attention is never 100% on something. And if you're splitting it through multiple people, I just got to ask, like, how do you
Mhm.
maintain that your videos have that Pattycakes essence that we all know and love you for? What are you doing to maintain that?
That's an interesting question. It's something I probably have to, be vigilant of all the time. I think at the end of the day, I'm the final one, writing, making the changes in the scripts to make it how I want it to be. And the script thing is a very new thing. Like I've been writing all of my own for the majority of the time. There's literally like, 1 to 2 videos recently that I've been trying this experiment on. So it's to be determined how effective this is.
Right.
But something I've just kind of realized that's a big bottleneck for me, is like sitting there and writing a script. So it seems like it's maybe helpful to have me sort of have the initial ideas for it, and then pass it on to someone who can help me sort of formulate it and do some of the research and stuff like that, and then take it back and sort of turn it into my own voice and then
Mm,
record it. So that's sort of like the way I'm trying to approach it, because there's just I think there's sort of a limitation to like what I can actually do within any given week if I'm the only one touching every piece of it.
right.
And I know actually you mentioned recently that you really like doing the video editing, right? I remember seeing that
Yes.
as a recent thing, which I kind of also like. I'm not a trained video editor like you are. I'm completely self-taught within the last like year to 2 years or whatever that I've been doing this. And it's something that I really enjoy though. And I feel like I, it's like a creative control over the video that I get to choose.
Yes.
It's a hard thing to give away, and at some point, I would like to get some help with that, but man, it's like a really crucial part of the final outcome.
It's a strange one because there's a control aspect thing to it, or a control freak aspect to it.
Hmm.
Because and it's not someone you can actually, it's not something you can fault someone for, because I mean, it is your channel and it is your videos, and this is your like persona, marketing, etc., whatever you want to call it. It this is where it happens, and this is where it all gets put together. So it's natural to want to feel some sort of ownership over that, because
Yeah.
that's ultimately where it all comes together. Um, but that being said, if you aren't professionally trained, if you're not someone like me who spent 10 years, 12 years in the film industry, it would help to get somebody who has had a similar amount of experience on board to take your videos to the next level. And it could be something as simple as just like, good editing is invisible, in my opinion. It's not
Yeah.
something that you take note of. Good editing doesn't mean like your videos become montages, every single one of them. No, it's just, it's rhythm, it's pacing, it's clean audio, it's natural progression of ideas, it's pacing more than anything. It's good pacing. Um, and if you struggle, I personally don't think you struggle with that. I think your videos are really, really nicely paced these days. But I can see why you'd want to offload that and give it to somebody else.
Yeah, that's definitely something that is like a potential future thing for me to get some help there. You actually gave me some really good feedback months ago about pacing, which I really appreciate
Oh
because
yeah, I did. I remember that.
that
Yeah.
helps me. I've really taken that to heart and tried to like let things breathe more. Because when I edit, I when I started out, I was just trying to like cram as much information into a short period of time as possible. So it was like
Mm.
I've always had sort of like a thing against the YouTuber, like with the whole thing with all this like
Oh God,
fluff
yeah.
around. I just when people have like an intro that takes like 15 minutes to like get to the point. That was always
Right.
just something I couldn't stand when I would watch other content. And I don't want to talk about anyone specifically, just as a platform. Like it just it's in every different genre.
Where did
And
you like
so
this start? Like, I remember when this started coming out. It was like the Machinima days when they were doing gameplay, like Respawn, I think it was called, like Machinima Respawn,
mm,
and they had like a few big names doing, or they weren't big names then, but they had some big names doing like let's plays. So they would say, "Hey, welcome back to another da 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 video, and in this video we're doing this, this, and this. But before we begin, could you please hit that like and subscribe?"
yeah,
It's like, no, these are things that are earned. Get to the point.
right.
Like
Yeah, that's
I've never agreed with leading with a call to action. Personally, I've always
I'm
been like,
I'm the
let's,
same way. I don't
yeah.
understand. I don't know. Maybe I'll change my stance on this at some point. I don't know. But like for
Maybe when you hit 500,000 subscribers, and then you
yeah,
get a brand manager on board, say, by the way, you could have been here 2 years ago, and it's like,
yeah,
oh shit.
exactly. Maybe I'm doing it all wrong. I don't know. But my I guess and this probably comes back to like my background in business and marketing is that I've always wanted to like provide the value up front and then like not ask for something until I feel like I've done a sufficient job of like providing that value. So it's like
Right.
I tend to only ask for like the like and subscribe and stuff towards the end of a video. Maybe that's like stupid and I'm leaving growth on the table by doing so, but I always like feel like I should earn it each time by like making the best video. The only exception I'll have to that is when I'm trying to grow other people's channels. Like for example, in this interview series I've done recently, like I try to get people to go visit my friends' channels to help them grow.
Sure.
Because I know that realistically by the end of the video, not as many people will stay, and I really do want
Right.
to give people something back for spending the time to
Of
do an interview
course.
with me. So like that's a little different, but generally speaking, like if it's for my own, like I don't want to ask for stuff myself until I feel like I've earned the right to ask for some help in that department.
Well,
So that's just kind of a principle I've worked
I
from.
think I think we're kind of past that though too, right? If somebody stays for a, like, I feel like YouTube content and YouTube audience has evolved to this point where they are a little bit more self-aware. They know what the like and subscribe button is. They know where they are. They're very,
Mhm.
very clearly designed on all the apps that they use them on. It's more about the content, in my opinion. You said you might be leaving growth off the table. True, but if you were focused on growth, you wouldn't be a Destiny YouTuber.
Yeah,
Like,
well, that's
it's a
it's definitely
it's a slow
probably go
burn.
into Minecraft or something if you.
Minecraft, or become a tech YouTuber, or
Yeah,
do phone reviews or something like that.
yeah.
It's a slow burn, our little corner of the internet, but it honestly, I feel
Mhm.
like it's something that does pay off
I do though.
very
I feel
quickly.
like the Destiny community is very special for supporting creators. Like
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that there's something about the relationship that creators have with their audience in Destiny where you've seen so many people now like Dado, for example. Like I mean, people love Dado. He's
Oh
been
yeah.
around for so long and like such a pillar of the community. It's just like it's amazing, how people like, and he's, from all of my indications with him, he seems like a great dude. Like I remember going to Guardian Con, I guess it was last summer, like the one that before the one that got canceled.
Yeah.
And it was, just amazing to see him like with a line out the door practically for the entire like 3 or 4 days of the
Oh
conference.
my.
Like literally he was always sitting there willing to talk to people. Glad was the
That's
same way. He
amazing.
always would take the time to talk to the people who wanted to spend time with them. It was just really cool to see that. I think that the Destiny community has a really cool relationship with their creators, and there's
Can,
some
can I
bad
flip
things
that
now
on
and
its
then.
head?
But go ahead.
That's going to be you next year, assuming America gets this thing together and gets everyone vaccinated, which probably won't happen. But assuming it goes ahead next year, that may very well be you. Are you ready for lines going around the corner?
It's gonna feel weird, man, if it is like that, because I'm not like a very self promotion-y type of dude. Like I kind of do my own thing, but I don't know. It'd be interesting. I'm excited to go to whatever the next conference is. It's one of my big like passions is traveling and going to see new areas and stuff. So I'm actually really excited whenever hopefully the world gets back to some level of normal that I can start attending a lot of these gaming conferences again because I really enjoyed my time at GuardianCon. That was the first like gaming conference I ever went to.
Mm,
I'm coming again from like the business and marketing world where I used to go to these like super dry conferences. That were,
soulless,
yeah.
great
So
walls.
I
Yeah,
mean, like the GuardianCon, there's people like playing like VR games, and there's like a
yeah,
whole like LAN setup of these computers to play on. It was awesome. So I'm really excited to do more stuff like that.
for sure. So I wanted to I want to bring it back to your content for just a second, if you don't mind.
Sure.
There is a certain air that you carry yourself with. There's a certain vibe you get with watching your content, your streams, and everything, and it's very comfortable. It's very welcoming. I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I've just made this up in my head, but I'm pretty sure you've been called Daddy Cakes at one point.
I'm sure I have at some point. I
Right.
feel like every version of the word cakes
Yeah,
has been
because
used in some way.
people aren't aware you are a little bit older than most. You said yourself you're a boomer,
Yeah.
but not actually. You're like mid 30s. Um, there is almost like I get a little bit of, as well, just because of perhaps my voice and my beard, similar to you.
Mhm.
Is that if you're a little bit older, there's this like pseudo parental relation between the creator and the audience or the community, and it's all in good fun and it's all affectionate.
Yeah.
But there is always a point where that happens. There's always a point where either it's because you've settled into the kind of content that you want to make. It's either because of the sort of voice that you have and the voice that you've been wanting to establish, but for whatever reason couldn't get it until this very point. When, for you, did it all click? When did Pattycakes Gaming find its groove? And when did the community start really noticing you for who you are and what you're trying to do?
That's a good question. I feel like the first video that really cemented like what I was trying to do with the channel was when I made, I think it was last March, which was the one I had Shroud clickbait on the thumbnail. It was
Damn
just,
it.
Shroud. But no, it was
Not you, Patty. You clickbaited. How dare you?
the
People.
the, vid- the video actually was it featured clips of him, so it's okay.
Oh,
But
no.
it was it was the whole concept of like the number one thing that separates top FPS players from the rest,
Right.
and that video just really seemed to resonate with people. And it was the first one that I felt like really performed really well on YouTube, but also just it was like the type of content I wanted to create, which was sort of this marriage of like the current state of Destiny and giving good advice, but also taking concepts of other games and like timeless FPS fundamentals that you could literally use for the next, several decades of playing FPS games because they're just like principles that are sort of timeless
Mm.
and, sort of married those together. So I thought that was like my first video that I really felt I really like nailed exactly what I was trying to do with it. And the response was incredible. So that was probably my first one that I really felt like I sort of put all those pieces together.
Now, was it necessary for you to have a video like that in order to be not to be taken seriously as a content creator, but for you to take yourself seriously as a content creator?
I think that definitely helped. I think that it's really a progression over time. I think when you when you start out, you really have no idea what you're doing. And this is what I always tell people because I obviously get a lot of questions about like, what's your advice on growing on YouTube or, trying to become a streamer or whatever. And obviously it just takes time and you have to just my take has always been to invest in improving 1% each time in whatever you're
Mm,
doing. So, if that's like you're maybe you're trying to make a YouTube channel, it's like that your first video is going to be bad. Like no one
right.
has a good first video unless you have previous experience making good videos. Like I feel like I could take the skills I have now and do a pretty good job in a different industry.
Sure.
But that's because I've been doing this now for almost 2 years and I have a pretty good idea of like what it takes to make a decent video.
And you have that eye for
Um
what's good and what's bad.
yeah, exactly. But that's something that's developed. I really think that YouTube is a skill platform and it's about spending the time to learn all the little things like learning what makes for a good thumbnail, a good title, a good like, content piece that actually matches what the marketplace out there is interested in watching. It's like you can have the best title and the best thumbnail, but if you're making a video about something that no one cares about,
Right.
it's not going to perform as well.
Yeah, and
And
that's another thing I wanted to ask you on is
Mhm.
this is a good way of putting it. It's a skill based platform, and therefore it also has skill based matchmaking because algorithm. I had to easy joke.
a little Destiny
Um,
jokes.
how much of it when you were finding your voice and you were finding your feet as a content creator, how much did you, because this is something I'm starting to get a lot of questions about because it's just becoming more known about, is how much did you optimize for the algorithm, do your research, et
Mhm.
cetera, versus how much did you just focus on making a good video?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I think both parts are important because you can make a fantastic video, but if you do a poor job of marketing it, and what I primarily mean is like figuring out what the message of the video is and how that relates to making a very good title and a very good thumbnail so that it's attractive for people to watch. The reality is it's just going to struggle on YouTube. At the same time, you can have a great thumbnail and a great title, but if you make a poor quality video that people watch for 2 seconds and click off because you're making some really big mistakes, then that's also not going to perform well. The
Right.
really incredible thing happens when you can combine both of those, where you like learn the marketing side of like how to actually make an attractive video, and then also deliver some great content in the video that is engaging and interesting and people feel satisfied watching it.
That's not easy. How dare
It's
you?
not that's why I say it's a skill platform. It literally and if you watch like big YouTubers, like people like Mr. Beast is one that I always like love to just understand how his brain works. I mean, he's been at it for a long time now and he says that kind of thing all the time, that it's a matter of really trying to understand the nuances of the platform, and like they're all different skill sets and there's no shortcuts. Like you really do have to improve as a content creator in order to get more traction. Like it's just it is what it is. It's a
Do you
it's
think there's not enough discussion that's being had about like how hard this actually is, or
absolutely. I
do you think
Oh
people are
man,
just are so eager that they want to just get into it no matter what, and then they end up running headfirst into all the classic mistakes that
dude,
happen when you're
something I
eager?
could talk about for so long. I my okay, so admittedly, when I first started out and before that, I was a little critical of a few different content creators who I thought like didn't their videos weren't like really well researched and stuff like that. And
Mm.
after being in this for 2 years almost, like I have so much empathy for anyone who like puts
Yeah.
some stuff out there, man. It's so hard. Like people don't understand
Yeah.
how much goes into it and how hard it is to put your opinions out there and get crapped on, in the comments, and like people who like, spend a lot of time and work really hard on their stuff. It really makes me sad when they get really bad reactions to things when I don't think it's well reserved or
Yeah.
well deserved. That I feel like they're, everyone's trying their best and it's really hard. So I have a lot of empathy for anyone who's trying to make it in the content creation world. I
But
think it's a lot harder than people realize.
I mean, there are definitely some players who don't research their stuff well, who definitely seek to provoke more than invite thoughtful discussion about
Mhm.
whatever it is they're making content on. But it still doesn't invalidate the work required just to even make it. You know?
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's also something about the people who have been in it for a long time have sort of been through like a war. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
a slog. Like there's it's great. There's nothing else I would rather do with my time. It's truly like my favorite thing to do right now, and I'm just obsessed with. I can talk about YouTube and content creation all day, every day, but there's like a mental toll that happens, and I think the people who have been on the platform for like 4, 5, 6, 7 plus years, like you can kind of almost feel it in there that they've been through this battle for so long, and just
Sure.
it's like it's not like one negative comment breaks you or anything, but it's just like just the onslaught of
Yeah.
the needle that broke the camel's back type of thing. Like it just each little thing kind of adds up, and I can kind of feel it in certain content creators that I watch. And I feel like, man, you've been through a lot with this.
Is
Like,
it, I was
you
going to
know,
ask you that. Is it possible for people like us to not read every comment?
I personally still read. I wouldn't say every, but like almost every comment.
Same here.
And part of the reason is that I do still find some value in it. Like, number one, I truly do appreciate everyone who leaves a positive, creative, constructive
Sure.
like comment. It's like their time that they could have chose to just watch a different video, and I appreciate them leaving a message. So I do want to read those, and I try to leave hearts on ones that I think are funny or interesting or whatever. So
Mm,
I appreciate people doing that, and also obviously it seems to help algorithm wise for engagement and stuff. So that's cool. There are obviously a lot of negative comments, and I feel pretty grateful. I feel like a lot fewer than the average content creator. Like I don't I
oh,
don't know why, but I feel like mine have been very kind to me overall. There are some not so
I'm
kind ones, but
I'm starting to get more negative than I've seen before, and I don't know if it's because I'm talking about more controversial things like fixing the Crucible.
I think it's a
Um,
growth thing actually. It's because you are having more and more reach as you're growing,
sure, yeah,
and the nature of that, you're attracting a lot more positive stuff, but also by nature
yeah.
of having more visibility, you're just going to get more negative stuff too. And it's just something that happens. I think it happens to everyone.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm just grateful that they only attack my character and not my work. Like every time I've seen a negative comment, it's like, "Who is this pretentious asshole in my recommends?" You know, and it's
Yeah.
like, all right, if that's the worst you have to say about me is that I sound or seem pretentious, then I'll take that. As long as you're not saying things like, "This is a poorly researched video," it's not something to
Yeah.
really worry about. You know, like personal attacks, I'll take them all day long. You know, but it does cause a bit of strife. It definitely weighs on you over time, and there are days that I've just literally just said to my girlfriend, look, I need a day for myself. I'm going to tune
Mhm.
out. I'm going to shoot some dregs. I'm going to boot up Formula One because that's my other game right now, and I'm just gonna whiz around and just wallow in it a bit.
Yeah.
That's just my process. And that's one of the last things I wanted to ask you about with respect to content creation is what's been the hardest point or the period of your content journey so far? Like what's really
Mhm.
been what was the point in your journey where you were just like, yeah, I don't know if I want to keep doing this because we all have this, and I still
Yeah.
have them.
I no, definitely. I mean, there's certainly ups and downs with anything. So I think one of the hardest things about it is that there's a constantly shifting like floor of what is considered good
Mm,
in terms of performance and stuff like that. That it's sort of like inevitable. I don't think anyone's like immune to it. And what I mean is that like when you start out and you put your first video out there and you get like 100 or not, like you get 10 views and you're super excited and it's like, oh man, I got a comment. Like it's really cool. And then like you've put out maybe 10 to 20 videos and like you start to get like a maybe a few hundred views and like you get a few comments and like it's exciting, and then maybe you put out a video that doesn't do so well, or you're kind of upset. But then you put out a few more and they do pretty well. And it's like you can see the tide kind of rising over time.
yeah,
But what happens is that like that same level of like dopamine happiness when you get, a really high performing video also means that like it's very easy to be sad when a video that would have been your best performing video ever a year ago is like below par, like significantly below par. You know, because
Yeah.
YouTube does this thing in the analytics where they tell you, oh, this
God,
video
I
is
hate
performing
that.
significantly worse than your last
And you're just
10,
like,
and
well,
like
fuck this,
it's
I'm
all like
out.
red downward arrows telling you like the stonks are all gone. It's just,
Oh,
you know, they
it's
do a very good job of it's like one of my things I hate the most is that part of it.
what feels worse, losing money on the stock market or that?
Oh man, I don't know. I feel like it's almost worse with YouTube because the thing is you put so much, even a video that like was quote unquote easy, you still put a lot of time and energy into. And the ones that really hurt are the ones where you put a lot of time in and you feel like it's going to be really good and then it just doesn't perform very well for some reason.
Yeah,
Those are like hard mentally. I feel like though at a certain point, like I've had so many videos out there at this point that I think I'm a little bit less, but that sort of like reaction has been numbed a bit because if after you've done enough of them, you've just gone through that cycle enough times of realizing you're not always going to have a number one out of your last 10 video, meaning like, you know, the most popular out of your last 10.
right.
There's going to be ones that underperform, and a lot of it is out of your control because it's based on, not out of your, it's in your control, but like things like, you know, you made a video about a topic that just for whatever reasons isn't as interesting to people, or maybe you didn't quite nail the thumbnail or the title, or like, you know, just for whatever reasons out of your control, it just didn't really pop off the way you wanted it to. And I think the more videos you make, you start of, I don't know, you sort of get like desensitized to that a little bit over time, but it still
Sure.
stings. You know, it's always a bummer when you feel like one would do really well and it just isn't performing great. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of
No,
the hardest mental battles.
and it's weird when, like, for me, I had this moment when 2 second rule blew up, and before that the video with you and Cami blew up, and then every video after that was pretty much down in terms of reach, in terms of views and everything. I was just
Mhm.
like, was this a fluke? Did I just, like,
Right,
was I
the
was I a one
classic
hit wonder?
imposter syndrome.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if I had just tapped into something in the day, or if it was literally because I put Pattycakes' name in the video. That's why it
Mhm.
exploded. 2 second rule sort of alleviated a little bit of that anxiety because that was a completely original thing
Mhm.
and nobody had done that before. And it was like, okay, maybe I'm not full of shit. maybe there is some value into me continuing to make videos. But imposter syndrome definitely sets in every once in a while, despite whatever achievements or activity you've done to dispel that, and it
Yeah.
sucks. Um,
Absolutely. Just on that topic, I want to mention to people
sure.
because I know I'm sure a lot of people watching your videos are interested maybe in pursuing YouTube or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
One
Absolutely.
of the most helpful things I can recommend is to try as early as you can to surround yourself with peers who are also trying to make it in the content creation world. Because
Mm,
like I literally don't know if I would be as far as I've made it without having a lot of close friends, yourself being one of them, and like other friends of ours like Castle and Brave Hero and Apathetic, and
right.
you know, there's so many that I can name, but it's like just being surrounded by other people who are also trying to make it, and like you can kind of share, you know, things that are working for you, things that aren't working for you, get some like critical feedback, critical meaning like you know, helpful, constructive feedback from people who have, you know, some insight into that type of stuff. So, you know, for example, I remember with you one time we had a sit down after
Oh my god, that
you were
was an
kind of going through that.
interrogation. Holy shit, I remember
You're
that.
going through a kind of a slump after your big you know, Cami video
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
the second rule, and you know, you felt like maybe there were certain things that were not working, and a lot of us had different ideas on like things that you hadn't yet identified yourself that you
Yeah.
could be doing better to improve like your next videos. And I think, I mean, it seems like you taking some of that to heart has certainly helped your
Yeah, no,
recent videos because you're on a hot streak. So
the biggest thing was title and thumbnail. It was the intrigue. We talked about this a lot,
mhm.
and I was never really good at that. I was always very much a straight shooter because I didn't believe in clickbait. I was being very puritanical, in my own ironic words. I had scrub mentality, where I wasn't playing to win, basically. And as
Yeah.
much as people rag on clickbait and whatnot, it's evolved to this point where you have to kind of be a little bit baity in your title and thumbnail, But once you've got someone's attention, you have to respect that. And
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
as long as the means justifies the end, you know. For me, I'm all of my stuff as much as I can. I try and bring new ideas that aren't
Mhm.
being talked about, or develop existing ideas to a level that does them justice. But I can't I can't tell people that, I can't title a video, "You should stop complaining about stasis." I'm going to go ahead and title it something like, "How to Suck Better." Because,
Yeah.
that works and gets people through the door. But
Yeah.
you're absolutely right about that, because if I didn't have you guys around me to kind of whisper in my ear and say, "Listen, do this better because it's not working," I would have had to go to somebody else who isn't a content creator, who doesn't have this aspect, who hasn't gone through the journey of the research and the late nights worrying about this sort of thing, the looking at the data, all of the lifestyle aspects of being a content creator. Like they could be the most intelligent people in the world. They could be very, very versed in media and accept all the, they could read data really well, but if they don't have the experience of worrying about how to make their video reach a larger audience, then
Mhm.
it's hard to either get the emotional support that you might need at that time, or to get the actual physically tangible, like, suggestions to try to make it better. um, so yeah, no, that was a fantastic point. Now,
Yeah.
before we wrap up, I want to get let's do a lightning round of hot
Okay.
button topics in the
Deal.
crucible. Okay, so I'm going to say topic. I want to get your feedback. I want to get your answer in like one sentence
Okay.
or two sentences maximum. Okay. Number one, stays in PvP, good or bad?
Mm, I would say it's good if tuned correctly because it adds depth to the game, but I think that there's a lot of changes that need to happen before it's where it should be.
Okay, that was pushing it. Pe-
I'm gonna fight for as many words as I
yeah.
can.
People leaving the game, people being public about leaving Destiny because of stasis in PvP.
Mhm.
Exaggeration or justified?
Um, Understandable, but I think that a lot of them will come back over time.
Okay. Trials, adept weapons, kind of a bust. Is this the
I,
death knell for trials?
mm, I think it can be resurrected with some changes. I do agree that the current adept weapons are kind of a joke, and I don't think they're very desirable for most people.
Gotcha. PvP feedback, videos like mine, your thoughts on everything. Bigger creators who have been sticking with PvP, are they being ignored by Bungie?
I don't think they're actually being ignored. I think it's that Bungie only has so many resources, and they choose to invest the resources in certain areas. And the honest truth is that PVE has more attention from the casual player, and I think that's where their focus has been. But I hope
Hmm,
that the needle swings back the other way a little bit in the future.
very good. YouTube commenters, why are they always right?
Oh man, uh, a, a lot of diverse opinions.
That's not an answer. Fuck you. That's not an answer. No, I don't accept it. Okay. Anyways, final question. Final few questions. First of all, thank you for being here and for sitting down with me for, as near as makes no difference, an hour, for just talking about your content journey and lending your insights as to how you rose through the ranks, you're on this path becoming the next Fallout, the next cool guy, the next Cammy, Drew, whoever you want to compare yourself to. And it looks like you're here to stay, even though, like you said, you're trying to make content from like more of a generous FPS perspective rather than an outright Destiny one. Do you see yourself? Do you see yourself basing yourself in Destiny, or will you move to something like, I don't know, Halo Infinite or something else if that
You
tickles your
know,
fancy?
so here's the hardest part of YouTube, and people who have tried to switch games know this. It is so tough to switch games with the algorithm because you're gonna go through a period of really confusing YouTube because they're thinking you're a Destiny channel, and then all of a sudden you're putting out non-Destiny content, and I think it's really hard to make that switch. I don't realistically see myself trying to full on make a switch anytime soon. I think either I would have to really feel like Destiny was dying, or I would have to get so in love with some new game that it's
Right.
just like it was the clear thing I was obsessed with. At this point in time, I still think Destiny has a lot of good reasons to cover. I think there's still a very large audience of people interested in the game, and I don't really personally see myself switching anytime in the very near future.
Fair enough. Do you have any big plans we should know about? This is a cue to plug your rebrand
Ooh.
if that's happening.
Yeah, I am working on a rebrand. I've got a couple bigger videos coming out soon. I'm working on a new updated hand cannon tier list, which will be interesting. Those tier list
Hand
videos are
cannons?
terrifying.
Hand
Uh,
cannons? Content?
yeah,
Destiny? YouTube? I'll
content.
see you at a million views.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. And I'm actually really enjoying this sort of new like interview series I've been doing. I just recorded a
Yeah.
talk with you that will either be live or not whenever this comes out. I'm not sure, but we'll figure that out.
Just assume your stuff goes live before mine. That's just the safe
Yeah, okay.
policy with
Well,
me and my
in that
audience.
case, you just listened to my interview with Nomad on my
Yeah.
channel. But yeah, those have been really fun because it's a way to connect with a lot of people that I either are already good friends with or people I sort of know who I'd like
Right.
to get to know better, and it's been a cool way to you know strengthen some relationships I have with different content creators, and also create some pretty interesting long form content for Destiny, because I feel like there's just kind of a lack of that. Like I always love
Yeah.
the reason I started doing them is like that's the stuff I would want to listen to. Like I love
100%.
listening to like good players talk about their how they think about the game, and so I just was like, well, I know a lot of good players. Why don't I just start recording conversations with them and
There you
see
go.
how it turns out?
I mean, part two of this one will have to be more specifically to trials and whatnot, but I'm sure we can milk 10 videos out of that. That's fine.
Oh, easily.
But listen, before we finally let you go, I have the most important question for you that I don't think I'll ever ask anybody anything more important. Are you ready?
Yes.
What kind of pancakes are the best?
Ooh, wow, that's such a hard one.
This is a
I
loaded question. This is someone with pancakes in their
Yeah.
branding. You are an
Okay.
expert here.
If I could only pick one topping and it was like the only pancake I was allowed to have for the rest of my life, I think I would go chocolate chip. They're classic. They're delicious. I think I'd have to go with those. I think they're my favorites.
Isn't that rather basic?
It is basic, but it's a classic. It's like
Well, you could
you
have been
know.
worse. You could have said plain. Now, are you having
No, I wouldn't
honey,
go
maple
plain. I
syrup
think I would go like really good true maple syrup would be
from
my answer
Canada?
for that.
Yes.
Yeah, from Canada, of course.
Good. Good. Strawberries and all? No fruit?
Yeah,
Fruit
no,
in
I
them?
love. So that's the thing. I love fruit pancakes too. Bananas and blueberries and strawberries. And I've had some decadent ones like Oreo pancakes before and
Mm,
all kinds of crazy things. But I feel like if I had to just pick one, I've always been a fan of the classic chocolate chip pancake.
perfect. Patty, thank you so much for hanging out and being part of this podcast ish thing that we're
Yeah,
doing now. Apparently we're podcast people now.
I like it.
Just when we both get our Spotify deals, just make sure that you have a different studio space to mine. We can't be sharing spaces, okay?
That sounds good. As long as we can be nearby.
Yeah, there we go. All right, thank you so much, mate.
Awesome. Thank you.